Hi, this is Ryan Allward from Straight No Chaser with Popularity.com.
What qualities does a song or do songs have that make you want to choose them to add that little extra?
We choose songs based on what moves us first, what songs we're really into, hopefully that it will then resonate with an audience. For instance, one of the guys, Jerome, who sings a lot of the lead solos in the group, he was in a barbershop a couple years back, and he heard a Red Hot Chili Peppers song on the radio and looked around, and everybody was bobbing along with their head, and he was like, you know what, this song could be a cool one for us to do. But what we like to do is take it and not necessarily just cover a song straight up. We like to kind of add our own twist to it. So whereas that's like more of a, you know, rock song, we made it more into like an R&B type group. So it's a lot just basically where guys are coming from personally with the musical backgrounds and tastes that they have, and then just putting that into a song.
What's the mindset that goes into creating a set list for a Straight No Chaser tour?
I think that everyone's going to be able to enjoy it for some reason or another. Like we've got, I mean, we kick off the show high energy, and then we'll go into a song that's more kind of fun and comedic to basically just get, you know, whether you're 8 years old, you know, you can enjoy the show right from the get-go. We've got songs from like the 60s, you know, for the audience that grew up with that kind of music. We close the show with high energy again with like Lady Gaga, Justin Bieber, that kind of thing. So just really spanning all sorts of musical genres and tastes, but seeing it in a completely different way.
Do you think that with this tour that you're going to be surprising anyone?
I think we're surprising ourselves with what we're doing. Yeah. You know, we're coming up with arrangements that we are not typically Straight No Chaser. We're constantly challenging ourselves from an arrangement standpoint. So we're always coming up with ideas that are surprising in a good way, I guess. But yeah, I think a lot of fans, especially those who may not have heard us at all, or maybe just know us because of the videos that they've seen on YouTube, you know, I think they'll be surprised in a good way. We like to say that you got to catch a live show to get your head around really what we're doing.
Working on tracks, are you ever surprised at how good they become? Have you ever had any that really just stood out and just made you think, wow?
Yeah, there've been a handful of songs that, I mean, especially in the studio, where we've built songs from the ground up, you know, where we didn't have any music charted out. Um, it was kind of a step B, then step A process. That's kind of one where you step back and after you listen to it and laid everything down, you're like, that kind of came out of just a random idea that one guy had, you know, and then we threw our collective weight onto it and said, let's see what we can all do. And that's what's great about having a group of 10 guys, too, is because you've got 10 different mindsets and ideas about what could work. And whereas not all of us have, like, you know, classical musical training, we all are constantly listening to all sorts of different musical ideas. So those kind of come into any arrangement, really. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that really answered your question or not. But.
Can you talk a bit about the song that you've chosen to have as the closer?
Yeah, you mean the off mic closer? We'll do typically like an off mic closer at the end of each one of our shows, just to kind of it's just a nice breath of fresh air for us personally, but also I think the audience really responds to that as well. That just kind of natural, no microphone type song, that's pretty fun. But for the closer, what we'll do is a medley of current pop songs. And we've been working with one medley for about the past year of CeeLo Green's Forget You into Baby by Justin Bieber, and then two Lady Gaga songs. And we're using that template for this year's new closer. We're going to do some Maroon 5, like Moves Like Jagger. We're going to incorporate, help me out, what else are we going to incorporate? Some LMFAO, a Neo song. So it's kind of using that same template that works really well, where you're giving little bursts of stuff that people have recognized off the radio, and then right when they realize what they're listening to, you just get them with another thing. So it's kind of a cool formula that's worked for us.
What makes a good Straight No Chaser song to you?
Wow, that's a good question. I think something that will equally sound very good musically, like very tight, but also will be very fun for us to perform and also enjoyable for an audience to listen to. So kind of that healthy combination of sometimes less is more. Sometimes you don't need, with 10 voices, everybody singing their own part. Sometimes you only need 3 or 4 vocal parts plus a solo. And then when you've got that mixed in with a little bit of good humor, not necessarily campiness or cheesiness, but something that makes someone smile, and we're in on that with us. There's really no fourth. We totally break down the fourth wall with our audience. Like, we're literally looking out, like making eye contact with everyone. So when everyone's in on that experience together and the song sounds great, I think that's an ideal song for us.
At this point, does music just happen?
There are moments when music will just sporadically happen. And that's kind of when guys have an idea in their head that they're just woodshedding a little bit and just kind of throwing ideas off of each other. And someone hears the direction that they're going, and they're like, oh yeah, well, you could do this too. And sing maybe a harmony part on top of it. I remember Jerome and I we recently got back from the UK. We had a tour over there last month, and we were out at a pub in Scotland, and he heard a guitar player play a couple Johnny Cash songs. And he was like, man, and he looked around and he saw everybody singing to it. He's like, that could be a really cool song we do. He's like, hey, listen to this. And he sang me the line that he was kind of feeling. I was like, that's cool. Okay, we could do that on top of it. And another guy heard it, and he's like, well, what if we added this? So that kind of collaborative process, that's really fun to just witness and kind of be a part of. But there is a lot of behind-the-scenes work that takes place, charting out the arrangement, getting it, all the parts mapped out, who's going to sing what, and then teaching it, and then leading a couple rehearsals to get it really where you can perform a song full out. Like, it usually takes us from inception of an idea to performing on stage. It can take as little as a week to a few months where guys are just really, really fine-tuning stuff. But yeah, there are those moments when it just sporadically happens, which are really fun.
Now, you guys add a real sense of humor into music. How important is that to you?
It's very important. It's not the most important thing. The most important thing is for us, tuning, making sure everything sounds spot on, and then letting the humor element come out, and I think the humor works best when we are very comfortable with a song, when we've got several reps of it under our belt, and we can just have fun with it. But knowing that we can have fun with it because we have put in the preparation and the rehearsal and the work on the front end where we can kind of take it wherever we want it.
How do you hope people view your music?
I hope people leave a show and view our music with, I want them to enjoy it, and I want us to kind of provide an escape for folks where they can just go and be entertained and leave feeling better than when they came. And it's interesting because some people say, we do meet and greets after every single one of our shows, and we'll have folks come up and they say, well, we saw you on YouTube, or we heard you on the radio, or whatever, or we have one of your CDs, but we're bringing friends next time to your show, because we take pride on our live show. Not that we don't on our CDs or anything, but it's best when people can leave that concert feeling uplifted in a way.
What do you find the hardest part of bringing a Straight No Chaser song together?
Getting all 10 guys to agree on it. It's funny because the way we arrange our songs, knowing each guy's voice as well as we do and having sung together for as long as we have, sometimes it is easy to just peg a guy as a certain role, and then you've got to step back and think, okay, we've got to incorporate maybe a guy who just sings background parts all the time and does a really good job at it. Let's give him a little bit of the spotlight here and there. So it's a challenge for us creatively to not get in a rut of just the way we've always been doing things, which is challenging, but yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge, is just getting all 10 minds that are completely different around one single idea.
What kind of expectations do you set for yourselves when you're creating a song?
Pretty high ones. I mean, when you've got a bar like, I'm trying to think of any song that we've sung for years now, any song like that just hits night after night after night with an audience. When you're arranging a new song, you've got to have that as the bar. It's like, okay, how is it gonna beat this song in our set? What song has to come out of a set list for this one to go in? And that's tough, but creatively, it's a great challenge to have. It's a good problem to have that, where you're constantly challenging yourself to outdo what you've already done. And I think we've come a long way in the past 4 years with our recordings and with our live show, just constantly saying, what can we do to tweak this? What can we make how can we strengthen this moment? You know, and that's really fun too when all 10 of us kind of sit around and we just work it out. But what's equally fun is when you're doing it on stage and it just kind of spontaneously happens. Like, we take a lot of pride in that aspect of our show too, is just the spontaneity factor. That literally, you know, the set list will be pretty much the same night to night, but the stuff that goes on during the songs and in between songs totally changes, which is great.
Like you just mentioned, you guys have set a real standard for your live shows, and like, I guess, really big expectations for putting on this really good show. So does that make preparing for the show that much more stressful?
Not really. I mean, I think, you know, when we're out on the road, when we're on stage, we're in our element. You know, that's what we do. We've been doing it for a long time together, and when you're performing with your friends, there isn't a whole lot of stress on stage. So I don't think that we place a lot of stress on ourselves, but I think if anything, it's just a good stress, you know, to like I said before, just constantly trying to up our game and keep it fresh for the people who have seen us several times, but also for the person who first time in the door. We want really to wow them and have them come back and bring more friends.
Creating music is like organizing an accident. What do you think of that statement?
It's pretty spot on. We kind of joke that there's this, it sounds kind of deep and philosophical, but there's like this thing that we call the pocket. And when you're in the pocket, everybody knows it and everybody can feel it, but you can't really specifically define what the pocket is. It's just something that everybody kind of gets. And especially when we're recording, like when we're looking for that perfect take, you know, sometimes when you try to make it perfect, it minimizes the result. But when you're just singing it the way that you naturally would when you're feeling it and letting kind of that music channel through you, it's like, that's the pocket, you know. So it's, and I think that's really artist talk. I mean, I think any musician kind of would get what I'm talking about, but anyone else would be like, what? But it's true. You know, you've got, what's cool is I think as musicians we can hear the end product without ever having heard a single note of what will be sung. And that's really the fun part, especially from the arranging standpoint. Whoever's coming up with the arrangement to say, okay, I know where I want us to get, and I know the tools with each guy's voice that I can use to make that sound. How do I go out and do it? That's probably the most fun part for me from an arranging standpoint.
At this point, what do you value the most of just this entire experience?
Just the opportunity. I mean, the opportunity that really, fell into all of our laps almost 4 years ago, and just the ability to say that I absolutely love what I do, I'm proud of what I do, to know that we're really putting a positive impact into people's lives who come to our shows and really love our music. I mean, we've got fans who, we don't call our fans groupies or fans, we call them chasers, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but they really take pride in the friendships that they've grown because of what we've been doing. Like, we'll have people who come to, you know, shows out in, like, especially out in the East Coast for some reason in the United States, there's just a big kind of centralized population of chasers out there, and they're all friends because of our concerts and stuff. And that's cool to know that, you know, we've played some small role in bringing new friends together that, I mean, might be, you know, lifelong relationships, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I think all 10 of us would say that just the ability to do what you love to do with guys who are some of your best friends from college, like, that's a dream job. You know, you can't get any better than that.
And at this point, what do you fear most?
What do I fear most? Besides getting curtain monstered in my bunk every night, we have a thing called the curtain monster. It's a long story. We won't go there. Won't get into it. What do I fear the most? Man, I don't think I've ever been asked that, really. Maybe longevity? I don't know. It's kind of a good thing that there's really no blueprint for what we're doing. You know, we're literally just trying to bring a very niche genre of music into the mainstream and support our families doing it. But I think that I'm looking back over the past 4 years, and I'm like, okay, there were moments in those early days when we're starting out when we didn't even know what we were doing the next week. let alone having now our schedule mapped out for the next year. So there are less question marks over our heads, but those question marks still remain, which can be kind of terrifying at times. But everything has seemed to get itself really worked out, and I think a lot of us were ready for that moment in our lives, personally and professionally, to have something like this come into our lives, and we just took a leap of faith on it, and really haven't looked back since, because we're seeing the success of, we're still paying dues. We paid some really serious dues, though, up front, where we're just like, I'm leaving what I know, I'm leaving my job, I'm leaving my home to go and try to get this back off the ground again and see if people will like it. So that can be really terrifying. We played Kelowna, British Columbia, which last night, we're in Kelowna, and looking at the mapping of it, when we get our routing, we're like, where the heck's Kelowna, British Columbia? Like, what? And you show up, and there's like 500 people there. You're like, I don't know how you heard about us, and I don't know how long you've known about us, but that's really cool. You can go to a town that you've never even heard of, and people are there to say, like, okay, guys, do your thing. That's really, really neat. So it's terrifying for a little bit, and then it's just fun.
And any final thoughts, anything to say to the readers of Popularity?
Thanks for expressing interest in Straight No Chaser and what we're doing. We've got a really cool year planned. We've got a Canadian and U.S. tour in the spring, big U.S. tour in the fall. We're going to be hosting our first cruise ever. Had you told us 4 years ago that we're going to go hit the ocean with a bunch of fans and put on our concerts on a cruise ship, like, what? We would have laughed at you, but it's going to be fun. We got some really cool things planned, and you can find out about all sorts of stuff on our website, which is sncmedia.com. We're all on Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff too, so you can hit us up there. But yeah, just thanks for your interest in what we're doing.